Hi friends, so a friend of mine recently asked me how I became comfortable living without planning. And it's not that I do that completely, but the last 6 months I have kind of done that completely. But I thought maybe now would be a good time to talk about that with all of you, because really, planning isn't possible right now in the world. And we can set intentions, we can work towards things, but in reality, I think we've all woken up to the fact that we're not in control, right? We can control ourselves and our own reactions, but that's really it. So in September of 2015, I went and did my first Vipassana in Wisconsin, and it was amazing because I had a pretty solid yoga practice already for several years at that point, and I had done a lot of meditation, but I hadn't really had an immersive experience. And for those that don't know, Vipassana is 10 days. You meditate about 10 hours a day, so overall you do about 100 hours. So you really have to sit with yourself. And in the course of that retreat, I realized that I was planning every single minute of my day. I don't mean I had some plans. I mean every 15 minutes of my day I was planning. And I realized that that was a really constrictive way to live. And I started realizing that it was actually stressing me out. And that I loved when my life took a more free-form, when I was open to opportunities that came up in the moment, which I wasn't really doing at that time. So the meditation really helped me, and then it gave me the tools that I needed in order to be able to open up space in my life without freaking out. Because I still had PTSD at that time, and I didn't know. So every day I was really significantly impacted and having PTSD episodes, which puts you into fight, flight, or freeze. And for me, most of the time, I was living in freeze. So having uncertainty in my life at that point was really scary. And also, I still was really living from a place of anxious attachment style. And so learning about that and learning about how I was using plans to control partners, because I was too afraid that I wouldn't see them again, or that they would abandon me, or any number of things. So figuring those two things out at the same time, I realized, I actually really need to be not planning my life. And I went on this walk, and I had this realization, it's not actually my job to plan my life. And once I figured that out, this tremendous sense of freedom came over me. And I realized that if I wanted to actually live into that, I needed to stop planning. So I completely stopped planning for 3 months. I would do bigger things, but for the most part, I stopped making plans with friends. I would just see who was available when I wanted to hang out, or I wasn't able to do that with work, of course. But in other forms of my life, wherever I could, I really tried to embrace that energy. And it was scary as fuck for me, but meditation helped a ton. So at that point in my life, I was meditating about an hour a day with Vipassana. And that helped me so much to really be able to be with my own fear, and to be able to witness what was coming up for me in any given day. And then, and then when I worked at the retreat center, so fast forward 9 months later, I left stable employment without having any form of employment lined up. But at that point, I had already taken yoga teacher training. I was really embracing this new freeform idea of myself and allowing myself a little more freedom to question how I was living, and really intentionally diving into intense growth experiences. So when I left the job that I actually had loved for 8 years at the company that I'd been with, and that was a hard move for me, but it taught me to trust my intuition and to actually like put that to the test, because it's scary to leave employment before you have other employment. And then I became a full-time volunteer running a retreat center. And at that point in time, it was an empty retreat center. There was one community member and like 4 board members at the time. And I didn't really know that when I accepted the position. I didn't really understand what that meant. So then I spent 2 years really embracing the unknown, and every day not knowing, like for the first 6 months in particular, like every day not really understanding like how things were going to get done or what was even going to happen. Like there were all these things that kept, every time I thought that I had plans worked out and like we had a system in place, or like, okay, now we're going to be able to do all the things that we wanted to be able to do, like someone would leave the community, or a group wouldn't show up that evening and we had prepared like a whole meal, or like a group would come that wasn't on the calendar. It was just like every day was such a strong practice in like, oh, you think you're in charge? Let me show you. So that really helped me to understand like, okay, I can trust, because things always worked out. They always worked out. They didn't always work out how I wanted them to. They didn't always work out how I thought they were going to. In fact, that almost never happened. And like, but they always worked out. And I always found the support that I needed, and things always came together in a way that was really beautiful. But it really required a lot of trust and surrender, and then the tools to like keep myself actually stable. At that point in time, I started learning other intuitive practices, like asking your belly things, like asking my body different questions, like, body, is the sky blue? And then feeling what that energy feels like in my body, and then asking it, oh, the sky is green, like, body, is the sky green? And then like feeling what that felt like in my body. And so pairing that with how I was making decisions, and then, oh man, yeah, it just taught me a lot about trusting my own intuition. And I would say, like, more than anything, that's been tremendously powerful. It's like every decision that I made based on that just strengthened that muscle, and then made it so that now I can live much more from that place, which has been such a tremendous gift. And it's like the last 6 months for me have really solidified that tremendously. Like, leaving everything based on a breathwork journey is, you know, that's a pretty strong example of how my life has changed. And beautiful. So anyway, I've rambled enough today, but I wanted to give you guys some insights into this time that we're living, and I don't know, maybe my journey will help you, maybe not, but it's so fun to be here. So all right, I'll give you a little teaser. Oh, look at that beautiful place. All right, my dears, much love. Bye.